Hello, this is Robert Barrick. It is Sunday, August 24th. I believe it is close to 3 o'clock or 3:30. I'm sorry, I don't know the exact time. I am making yet another video, my first for this week. I had posted a part 1 and a part 2 last week of a video that addresses the misuse of a surveillance drone by the Indianapolis Police Department. Well, this video is along the same line, but it isn't about what sensors the drone has on them and how these officers have pulled out, discovered one that they can use as a weapon, but rather its use, an example of how it was used to inflict injuries on me last night and today. Yesterday was Saturday, and I spent pretty much the entire day from roughly 9 o'clock in the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon at the State Library on Ohio Street over here in Indianapolis, Indiana. They close at 4. Working on an email that included the links to the video that I just referred, the video part 1 and part 2 that I just referred to. I have been sending out to various organizations and officials in this email or an email like the one that I worked a little bit more diligently on Saturday. And to ship it out, to email it out to a variety, as I said, officials and non-government agencies. Particularly, I was focusing on Congress over the last couple of days, but yesterday it was mainly non-government agencies, libertarian groups as well as progressive groups. So, you know, sort of both sides of the political spectrum. Anyway, when the library closed, I had a couple of errands to run, and so one of them was to go to the post office. They have one of those self-posting machines, to post a letter to a judge of the Superior Court for Indianapolis/Marion County that I have frequently written to, who sits on the, I guess, their executive committee and is sort of the lead judge for the criminal section. I had hand-delivered that letter to her on Friday. I didn't post the copy until Saturday because I'm concerned about, well, in the past, the mail that I have sent to this judge, it has been obstructed. And so had I mailed it on Friday, then it would arrive on Saturday. And I didn't want it to arrive on Saturday because that would give it a whole day to mysteriously disappear. And so I waited until Saturday to self-post it, knowing that it will be that it will arrive on Monday. And even the fact that I am going through the expense of sending it certified mail following a hand delivery, that I'm putting it in the hands of her staff in order to ensure that it's going to be delivered, I still need to go through that process just in the event that if the letter is delayed by undue police influence, or that the letter does not arrive, the hand-delivered one doesn't arrive, at least I have a record, a postal record that I sent the letter to the judge with a certification of delivery. So after I did that, and I'll talk a little bit more about that letter in a couple of minutes because it's relevant to what happened last night and this morning, I went and got my haircut. So I had not had a haircut in probably 4 months, and probably if you folks see or watch the other 2 videos, part 1 and part 2 of law enforcement weaponizing domestic airspace, you'll see that you know, my hair's been cut. Anyway, so I went home. It was hoping to have sort of a quiet, rainy evening at home. I arrived somewhere around, I want to say 6:30, and I fixed myself some dinner, and then I decided to take a nap. And just after I fell asleep, I don't think I was probably asleep more than 10 minutes, I was brutally awakened by the discharge of this drone sensor. Well, actually, it was a double whammy. It was the drone sensor and the Indianapolis Police Department's on-site torture team, and I'll explain that a little bit more fully in a moment as well. They woke me up with discharges of the handheld devices that the on-site team was using and the drone device. So it was mainly in the mode of stings. They've adapted the use of this device, which is meant to be able to discover whether people are hiding hidden weapons under their clothing, or even inside their bodies if they're, transferring contraband. It can view that. And again, if you watch those two videos that I posted last week, you'll have a much clearer understanding of what I'm referring to here. But they radically and brutally awakened me during this little short nap that I was taking, and I tried, though I may, to continue it. They wouldn't allow it. They just wouldn't allow it. It was a vicious awakening. And so what I did was I got up and I called the Department of Homeland Security, which I've been doing for months now, to leave a message, because they're not open on Saturday. But they do have. My experience has been that they do collect messages, and that sometimes, as a result of those messages, there has been a radical and immediate, not immediate, there has been a radical decline in the amount of torture or discharges that I've received somewhat after these calls, these sort of calls asking for intervention have been made. But on this day, it didn't do any good. But they did, after I woke up, reduce the intensity of their attacks, although they continued to discharge the device sort of flirtively, like not on a regular basis, but as I don't know, they changed shifts, or as they just got annoyed or bored or pissed off or whatever, they would shoot me occasionally with this device throughout the evening. And I did call a couple of more times and leave messages with the Department of Homeland Security. But I was able to, fudge around in preparation. I had a work shift today, and so I got my hair cut, and so I decided to trim my nails and my toenails, and I gathered my laundry up because I wanted to do that first thing this morning, and then I just I don't have a TV. I'm being kept intentionally poverty-stricken by these dirty officers, by some of their tactics. And again, I don't want to digress from the purpose of this video, but I encourage you to maybe watch those other two, that's part 1 and part 2 of the ones that I uploaded last week, that give you more of an idea of what I am contending with and have been contending with for a year. Like I said, I don't have a television, and so I was wrapping up the evening before I got tired to turn in by playing a little solitaire. Like I said, it was a rainy night, and I don't have any money, so I just was spending a quiet evening at home. And I really should have been. So I ended up going to bed around 11:30, and that's when they really started to escalate their attacks. And I really should have been kind of tipped off during the day. And there were like 3 things that should have tipped me off. The first was that I had made, by that time, probably, I want to say 4 calls where I had left messages with Homeland Security regarding the misuse of this device as a weapon of to inflict pain and torment and torture. And I noticed that my phone was being tapped, although I was actually leaving voice messages For the first time in months, these police criminals of the Indianapolis Police Department were tapping my phone and intercepting my messages in this, well, it's now sort of an obsolete manner, because they could and have and do intercept this by drone interception. So they have eavesdropping equipment that allows them to eavesdrop on telephone conversations without having to go to the trouble of tapping a phone. But again, this was some sort of a new little scheme that they put into effect, and as I said, it should have tipped me off. What I was getting is feedback. So I would say my name, and so then I would hear me saying my name right back, and so that happened with each time that the calls that I made to Homeland Security were being tapped, and that's one of the reasons. Also, the reason for those calls to DHS is that they're the ones who are supplying these drones to law enforcement across the nation, and that's how it came into the hands of these dirty cops. Hence, that's why I've been calling them over the months, really pleading with them to at least take away this one sensor that these officers have corruptly and sadistically and with depraved ingenuity discovered how to manipulate as a weapon. So anyway, like I said, I turned in at 11:30, and this is when they really got started with the torture and basically sleep deprivation. I started to make additional calls. Again, it was a tag team, or not even a tag team, a dual attack between the on-site team. They have commandeered the apartment below mine. They actually have ladders that they climb up, and using a handheld version of this detection sensor, use it to inflict pain from underneath me. And the drone operators of the Indianapolis Police Department use their more powerful version of this detection sensor to inflict pain and torment and sleep deprivation from above. So this continued for quite some time. I eventually got up, probably about a half an hour or so after I'd gone to bed, just sick of it. Because like I said, this has been going on. They discharge these devices at me multiple times per day and have been doing so for 10 months. And the work that I had done last week, including the videos, had, at least at the beginning of the week, I posted the videos on Monday and one on Tuesday, and but after that, and then on Wednesday, I wrote a long email, sort of elaborating on the videos that I sent out to God and everybody, including sending a copy to the judge that I referred to earlier. Well, that hasn't sat well with these dirty officers, and in fact, they are sort of notorious for taking information and trying to exploit it and to capitalize on it by underhandedly contradicting it. So coming up with ways to refute the facts by manufacturing or making up false facts in order to refute what I had said in these videos. And they also sought a little retribution. So that's kind of where we were with these attacks. In the past, my work has been basically trying to get them to stop their criminal behavior and their inhumane and cruel behavior. And in the past, this work has curtailed or made it more difficult for them to do this. And in fact, by letting the world know what they're doing, it's added scrutiny to them. But they continue to do it. In fact, since I've been here with you, they've shot me at least 2 or 3 times with the device to just say, fuck you, we're going to do whatever we want, and we're going to inflict pain on you whenever we want. That's just the mentality and the sensibility of these officers of the law. So what I did was I got up and I put on my flip-flops, grabbed that camera and my keys, and I went downstairs to the apartment below mine that as I said, was has been commandeered by these officers for the express purpose of inflicting this pain, climbing up on ladders and using handheld devices. And I went down there and knocked on the door. The entire video, I videoed from the time I left my apartment, walked down the stairs, went and knocked on one door, went and knocked on another door, and spoke. So the entire episode is on video, and I intend to upload it as well, along with this video, that will show that at no time, did I, freak out or lose control or anything. Basically, if these dirty officers were to try and, again, capitalize on this episode to take action, which they did last night, and I'll explain that too, but if they try and somehow use it to take illegitimate action against me, they can try, but I have this video that's going to be posted to YouTube. Plus, my apartment building has CCTV, so it has surveillance. So if these officers want to perpetrate the falsehood or the lie, which they, the intentional misrepresentation, excuse me, it's a little hot, then I would suggest with this video, by posting it right now today, less than 24 hours from when this event happened, that if these officers intended to misrepresent the truth and say that, oh no, we weren't there, he's just making this up, then the CCTV should be that should be downloaded onto a disk or a flash drive so that they can prove. And the CCTV lasts for, I want to say, 72 hours plus. And so if they recorded the 12 hours before the event and the 12 hours after, so that's just a 24-hour period, we could see whether there were actually officers in that apartment. So, because I don't think they've gone to the point of climbing through the windows to try and deceive, or because they're terrible deceivers. So, if that was their effort, I have already stated, well, this is the way that they could prove, without just making the groundless assertion that in fact they were not there, that they could prove that they were by collecting this data from the CCTV. So we'll see. But they were there, and in fact, as I ended up leaving, because these cowards did not come to the door as I knocked and said, I know there are police officers in there discharging their handheld sensors to inflict pain, and I'd like them to stop. I'd like to get some sleep tonight. They never did respond to my requests. But as I was leaving, I did hear one of the officers, who was a female, and it turns out from the other set of officers that are on their little stakeout, which is really just false evidence manufacturing team, that her name was Sally. And Sally had said, as I was leaving, that, he has a knife. Yeah, he has a knife. Well, that is the most absurd thing. But anyway, that's just the mentality of how they choose to try and take a situation and try and capitalize on it with falsehoods in order to further their dirty, corrupt operations. That's what they do, as well as, one of their only skills, I think like their primary skill, is to cover their own behinds. So whatever it takes in order to misrepresent the truth in order that they not get in trouble, or that they not be seen as the criminals with badges that they are, that they come up with these lies. Anyway, what was I going to say about that? Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm distracted. I'm sitting here in my car on a kind of a warm afternoon, but I'm next to the library, and so I can take this video right from when I finished recording it and load it onto YouTube, which is what my plan is. So I'm sorry, I was distracted here for a moment. Oh, okay. So when I got back to the apartment, as part of the video that is on here regarding that incident, I immediately called the Department of Homeland Security, of which the call is part of the video, and told them what this person had said, what this officer at the law had misrepresented, and as part of the conversation. So it's just, it's just this ridiculous, pile up, horse manure that they perpetrate on a frequent and regular basis. So, hoping in vain that effort would pay some dividend, I went back to bed. I laid down to try and go back to sleep, but that wasn't going to be permitted. Although the amount of shots of the sensor from the on-site team was reduced, the drone police operators escalated theirs significantly. And so that led to several consecutive phone calls to the Department of Homeland Security. And in fact, I called and left a message with the Department of Justice. I called the FBI, and I called 911 and informed them, all those parties, of what was going on, requesting intervention. With Department of Justice, I had to leave a message with the FBI, who are aware of this entire situation and yet have refused to act, primarily because they have a relationship with these officers, and these officers, in the course of stigmatizing me to everyone in the world, have done so to these officers as well, to the FBI in Indianapolis as well, insofar as there's also self-interest involved here, because the FBI is, of course, using these devices, but I doubt that they're using them in the kind of exploitative way that these officers of Indiana PD are, and yet they still refuse to act, although I did recently send off an email to a lot of people requesting them to investigate. The FBI officer that I finally spoke to, after speaking to the operator and explaining my situation and her transferring me to an agent who listened to me for just a couple of moments and then asked me for my name, and after she took my name, she hung up on me. And then with the police call, the 911 call, it wasn't actually 911. I called them because I don't have the non-emergency number, and I asked for it, but then the dispatcher said, well, I'm the same person that you would call if you hang up and dial that number, so I can help you anyway. So I did make it clear that my situation wasn't of an emergency nature, but they insisted on assisting me anyway, or attempting to. So I explained the situation to the dispatcher, who said, well, if this is a complaint on an officer, then you need to speak to a supervisor. And then I was escalated to a supervisor who ended up basically in a most condescending manner saying, and this was last night, well, early this morning, it was after midnight, so I'm just going to say between, well, I don't know, between 11:45 Saturday night and 12:30 Sunday morning that this conversation occurred. Yeah, maybe even a little later, maybe up until 1 o'clock this morning. It could have, oh, here I'm going to have a little interruption. We have an EMS vehicle. Oh, great, it went another direction. So she basically, in a condescending manner, said that she would escalate it to a commander at the Northwest Branch, because I was basically pleading for them, pleading for someone with integrity to stop these officers, these drone operators, from their torture. So again, I tried to go to sleep, but the torture did not remit, and so I called back the Department of Homeland Security, and in the course of one of those calls, in pain and frustration, which was the intent from the very beginning of these officers in the infliction of this pain, I shared some thoughts with the Department of Homeland Security on this message that I left that that was particularly unpopular with the officers, and that was that you know, basically leveling the accusation and assertion that these officers are incompetent. And when I say that, what I'm saying is not that they're incompetent, that they haven't been able to get me or to fix me or to make me pay for my complaints against them, but rather for wasting precious resources in pursuing me instead of actually dealing with this crime-ridden city. This is the 6th worst crime-ridden big city in America. They have had, my understanding is, 80 murders in this city during 2014. And instead of applying resources appropriately to deal with that issue, these corrupt officers, in order to, as I said, number one, cover our own behinds at any cost, have continued to waste taxpayers' money and to, you know, punish and attack me for an entire year, wasting something in excess of $800,000. And the way you know, that's an estimate, and I think it's a pretty accurate estimate, is that, for example, last night there were nothing less than 6 members of that force that were engaged in their illegitimate actions against me last night, and for many nights prior to. That includes the 2 on-site torture team members, and those are the ones who have commandeered the apartment below mine and used the ladders. There are 2 additional ones, and that's where this stakeout originally began, was they commandeered. I'm going to check to see if this is still running. Yes. Okay. Because sometimes it runs out of battery and I don't know it. Anyway, so I moved into this apartment. They've been harassing and persecuting me for over a year, and they have been using this device to inflict pain for over 10 months, or just around 10 months. I moved into this apartment in the beginning of December, and towards the end of January, they installed a stakeout team commandeering the apartment adjacent to mine in 205. I live on 204, to observe me on premises, which was in itself a duplicity that they have just continued. I won't get into details on that because that would take too long, but they've had this dirty stakeout team for 7 months now. Well, about 4 months later, in April, you know, I had just gotten so sick of it, and I have been doing research on, as I learned about this device and the different sensors that it has, I learned how to impede a little bit their ability to see through my walls. They've obliterated my privacy with this device. They are able to it's called see-through-the-wall technology, and they are able to eavesdrop and to watch me in my home, in the bathroom, which is one of the walls that, you know, they join, you know, after I go to bed, you know, in the kitchen, anywhere. They can observe what I'm reading, they can observe what I'm writing, no privacy whatsoever. Anyway, I got sick of that, and then in the course of my studies, I learned that there was a couple of things that I could do to stop them, and I started implementing these in my apartment in January. And basically, you know, I know that this is a kind of a throwback thing to the 70s, that people just kind of immediately think, wow, that's just, you know, it's just a hoot, and no such thing works. But it's 2 completely different situations. What people remember from the 70s is something that's entirely different than what's occurring now with this device. And basically, I put up some material that blocks the signal. So instead of being able to use at least the on-site torture team, or excuse me, the on-site stakeout team, being able to see through the walls with this technology, they've had to go back to using a thermal devices where they don't get a clear picture of me, but they, you know, get the sort of red image. So it does work. So that started in January. Well, the stakeout team started in January. I put up sort of minor defenses in April, and then that is when they started, or March, April, that is when they started commandeering the apartment underneath. They were looking for ways to get around what they were responding to my efforts to block them. And so one of the things that they did was start using the apartment under mine in order to surveil me from below. And then eventually, after I started to complain to the Department of Homeland Security, it looked as though that they were going to lose this sensor. And so at the threat of losing this drone sensor that they've adapted to inflict pain and torment and torture, they adapted their handheld devices to do so. And so around that same time is when they started bringing in the handheld devices to use to inflict the same kind of discomfort, pain, sleep deprivation, torment that they had been doing for 5 months before, strictly with the drone. Now they had both. So, as I said, since about late March, early April, they have had a double whammy, that they've been able to use the drone, and they've been able to use on-site officers, which I refer to as a torture team because that's what they do. Now, they didn't cancel out the stakeout team that was in the adjacent apartment when they moved downstairs. Initially, they did. But then what they did was keep both apartments. So for the last several months, since I want to say April, on and off, they have had that downstairs apartment, and now it seems that they have it pretty much full time. But they have also kept the adjacent apartment. So what they're doing now is, as I said, they had 6 officers, 4 on site, 2 in the apartment under mine, 2 in the apartment next to mine, and then at least two drone operators, and then, so 6. So in a crime-ridden city, in which they've had 80 murders this year, which is considered the 6th worst law enforcement agency in the nation, I'm sorry, the 6th worst crime rate in the nation among big cities, have been applying not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, but 6 officers of the law to perpetrate this vicious, this inhumane, this unconscionable, this torturous operation that they've been running against me, as I said, you know, in different increments altogether for a year, for 10 months the torture, and for the last April, May, June, July, August, double whammying me with a double torture team, and then also in January is when they started all that. So, in the course of my conversation with Homeland Security, not conversation, but the message that I left with Homeland Security last night relating this, I basically said, you know, these embarrassingly incompetent criminals with badges that are, you know, guilty of malfeasance, you know, wasting public funds, and then I just went through that. 6 officers when there have been 80 murders, and this is the 6th worst crime-ridden city in America. They have spent roughly $800,000 on persecuting and hounding me. Well, as I'm sure you can probably gather, that message didn't go over very well, and so they continued and escalated their torture a little bit more. But I still tried to go back to bed. But at 1:30, when I heard the stakeout team in the apartment adjacent to mine, and what they have turned out to be is the evidence manufacture team. So basically, the torture team underneath, the drone above, are inciting me, and then these, which is intentional, right? They have found, over the course of their 10 months of torture, they've discovered what they refer to as triggers. And triggers meaning they have found the locations on my body where they can inflict the discharge of this device, depending on the severity level and the duration of the attack, that they know what trigger will set me off into, despair and agony and upset, to where I will, become upset and use words that I would probably normally not use, and describe them in such a way as I would not, normally describe them. And in fact, if you watch my the video regarding weaponizing the airspace, you'll learn about another device that they have that allows them to capture brain images, and so they are intentionally attacking me at vulnerable times in order to stimulate sort of primitive defense responses that they can intercept. So sort of like horror movie type events that will come into my mind as I am being tortured, that they capture and record, which are just, like I said, they're primitive responses to torture. And they haven't been using this device very long, but they've found a way to misuse it in order to further their criminal misconduct. Anyway. So, I'm kind of doing pretty well here with this, and I don't want to sort of interrupt the flow here, as I'm doing right now, trying to review the notes that I have, so I wanted to make sure that I got everything. So I'm basically near the end. So these officers that were the evidence manufacture team started to giggle at my pain and torment and what they had been doing to me for the last, well, it had started earlier in the evening, but it really started up after I went to bed. So at this time it was probably about 2 hours. I went to bed at 11:30, and at about 1:30 I heard one of the officers say, "We're not going to let him sleep at all, he, 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 he." And so I just was like, wow, they're still torturing me. They're still imposing sleep deprivation. I'm laying here doing nothing. Why don't I get up and do something? And so I got up at 1:30 and I started to write this, right? Actually, this one. I stayed up for an hour and wrote this, and then today, well, I'll get to that in a minute. I kind of went over it because there was more to add. And that's where I'm getting to. So at 1:30 I got up and spent an hour writing down what had happened, so I could share it with you folks. And then at about 2:30 I tried to go to bed again, and eventually was allowed to go to sleep because they reduced the intensity of their discharge of the device, and so it wasn't so stringent that I couldn't fall asleep. Anyway, so I go to sleep. I had set my alarm for 6:40, or it was set for 6:40, and I had meant to get up to go and do my laundry fairly early in the morning, which is my habit of doing. I hate doing laundry, and I'm also don't make very much money, and so I don't actually do my laundry that often, but when I do it, I do it in the morning, and usually on Sunday, because the library's open. The library is where I do a lot of my work in trying to stop these people, writing emails, composing legal pleadings, because I filed a suit against them in federal court. The library doesn't open until later on Sunday, so I do some morning stuff. Well, instead of getting up at 6:30, I did turn off my alarm, but I didn't get up until 8:40 because I hadn't been allowed to get to sleep until 3 a.m. I left my house just after 10 a.m., so about an hour and 20 minutes after I had woke up, had some coffee, got ready, and cleaned up, made my little bed, such as it is, and out the door I went with my laundry that I had, at least, knock on wood, collected the night before. So I basically got to the laundromat at the time I'm usually leaving the laundromat, because I'm in the habit of getting to the libraries just around the time that they open, just a few minutes after. But I wasn't able to do that today. And as I said, I had a work shift scheduled for the day, but I didn't know exactly what time that work shift was, and I don't have a smartphone or 24-hour access to the net to check my schedule, and so I was relying on going to the library to find out exactly what time that I was to be at work. So returning from the laundry and putting my laundry away and then basically heading out the door, I got to the library at about 12:40. I checked my schedule immediately, only to discover that my arrival time at the office was for noon. So I was 40 minutes behind schedule, not late to work necessarily, but late to catch the van that takes us to work. At present, I have basically a minimum wage job that is an inventory taker, and so the organization that I work for transports a team of inventory takers to various retailers throughout the state and into other states. And so there is a commute time. Today it was in Terre Haute, and so the actual work start time was at 2 o'clock, but the van arrival time was at noon, and it usually leaves between 15 and 30 minutes after arrival time. It never leaves right at noon. Anyway, but I missed it. So I immediately emailed the supervisor for that job and said, hey, this is the situation. Why didn't I get that? I emailed her and offered to, I'm getting ahead of myself. What I want to say is, why would someone, a legitimate question would be, why would someone miss their shift, right? Why would you not know what time you needed to be at work? And I've just been explaining the nature of the work, where we are commuted to these various places, and so there are always two times listed. There is the time that you are scheduled to arrive at the office to catch the van, and then there's the time that you actually start work. Also, the start times can be literally any time. So they can be, I can be required to be at work at 2:45 in the morning to take a 2 or 3 hour drive to Kentucky or Illinois or Michigan or Ohio or northern Indiana or southern Indiana. Or I can be scheduled at 7 p.m. at night, or at 4:45 in the morning, or at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, that is the variety of start times, and so honestly, it does take a little reckoning to keep it all straight, because like I said, the times can be at any time, and there are two times listed, for each shift. But, I don't want to give excuses. I just want to explain that's the reality. And because of that, we either by policy of the organization or because of management's enlightened self-interest, what management does with this organization is remind the team members that are going to be going on a specific shift, okay, so, the bath and body team, you have an office time of X. So, as I said, this is just really enlightened self-interest if it's not a policy of the company for the management to do this, for everyone except me. And as I said, I don't have 24-hour access. I rely on the libraries in order to get my schedule. So when I got to the library today and I looked up my schedule, and saw that I was delayed, and I didn't want to miss the shift because another dirty deed of these officers, besides pulling stunts like this, and it invariably happens where they're doing this kind of escalation regularly before my shifts, and they have caused similar situations in the past. They have planned and executed these kind of, and I have actually proof of that, where a member of management has actually sent me emails or sent me texts that somehow she's able to withdraw and send other ones. And I have on one particular occasion this double set of texts that were sent to me that I have recorded on this device, that I have I've also posted on the web, as well as I have them saved on a flash drive. So this is not the first time that this kind of thing has happened. Whether today it was planned, I don't know. I can't say that for certain. But anyway, I did write my supervisor, email her, and I said, hey, I'm willing to try to drive myself, although I'm a little sketchy whether my car will make it, because as I said, poverty is being imposed upon me. I'm not able to get a job for which I'm qualified for because I'm being stigmatized with one telephone call to a prospective employer that showed interest in me. These dirty, corrupt officers extinguish any interest that an employer would have. So I'm forced into a low-wage job, and I've had two since being in Indiana. The first one I was fired from as a result of these dirty officers, and the second one I'm in this sort of horrible situation where in response to the police's influence, my supervisor, well, the nature of this video isn't to go through all of the things regarding work, but one of the consistent sort of injuries that I'm forced to contend with is an artificial interference with my hours and wages. I am scheduled, for example, this week, one day, even though I send emails saying, please give me more shifts, please give me more shifts. But I was scheduled one day this week, and I was basically forced to miss it. Because, unlike everyone else that works for this organization and has to be somewhere at a specific time, I am denied the text messages that remind a person this is what time the shift is. Because your shift can be, at this part of the clock, or this part of the clock, or this part of the clock, or that part of the clock. So I'm not justifying that, but I'm saying that in conjunction with what I had to contend with last night, and as a result of how it impacted my day, because I had to do laundry. I hadn't done it in probably, a month. And I dropped off my laundry, I went right to the library, I looked up my schedule, and I was bumming. I'm sorry, I don't want to get too colloquial, but like I said, I sent her an email and I said, hey, I will try and drive out there if you want me to, although I am apprehensive about doing it, and I'll wait 15 minutes if you email me back with a yes within the next 15 minutes, I'll head out. 15 minutes came and went, no email. I sent another one. I just said, probably like 25 minutes later, I said, I'm still at the library, like, send me, So I was there for probably another, 10, 15 minutes. Altogether, I think I was there about 45 minutes after I sent the text, or I'm sorry, after I sent the first email to her. I sent it at, I want to say, just after 1 o'clock. And I left the library at around 2 o'clock. And I sent her a third message just saying thanks, for not, which was probably, not, there was no justifiable reason not to say, no, we don't need you, or no, give it a try, or, you know, whatever. It was just another example of police interference that was just, don't say anything. He's suing us and you. We're still trying to do the things for which he is suing us for. So definitely don't page him back. Let's wait and see how we can spin this, or how we can, you know, I mean, that's the nature of the beast with these dirty officers of the Indianapolis Police Department. Anyway, I'm going to take this video and upload it along with the little event last night asking the on-site Indianapolis torture team in my building to stop, when I asked them to stop torturing me so I could get to bed, which I wasn't allowed to do until I was 3 a.m. That directly impacted me missing a shift, my only one for the week. So, you know, you'd think that I would probably be more torn up about this, but at some point, just for, you know, sort of mental health, you have to say, you know, it's just a comedy of errors that continues. You know, these dirty cops are just so, at this point, so corrupt, so malice-ridden, so vengeance-seeking. You know, it seems like this is a big game to them, that destroying my life and retaliating against me for trying to stop them, and when I say that, by filing lawsuits and by trying to stop them legally and by doing things that are quote-unquote protected to stop them from their criminality, and yet they continue it. And destroying my life by the abuse of their government, by the blatant, corrupt use of their government power, isn't funny and isn't a game at all. But I'm fighting back, and that's why this has gone on for a year, and whether it goes on for another year, which, God, I hope it doesn't, but I will never yield to these scum. And that's what they are. They're dirty, corrupt police criminals. And they deserve to be in prison. They have been and are inflicting severe pain, up to the degree that I would say severe torture. Also referred to as torture, or as an extreme technique, is the imposition of sleep deprivation. And that's what these corrupt and dirty officers are doing. They have and that's just, you know, if what they've done besides that, with the interference of my employment, with the forcing me into poverty, because I assure you that I am worth a lot more than $8 an hour. You have only to read, you know, the complaints that I've come up with, or that I've worked on, and my complaints, my motions, and I'm not a lawyer. I've had to do that on myself. These dirty cops even have interfered by stigmatizing me to lawyers, but I don't want to get off on a tangent here. Anyway, I hope this ends soon. I'm working towards that end. I'm working very, very hard to make it end. And no one can deny that, although if there's a way to try and twist it and deny it, these dirty, corrupt criminal cops will do so, because underhandedly contradicting the truth is a specialty of theirs. Thank you so much. I'm sorry. I hope I didn't come across too disrespectful of law enforcement, because decent, upstanding, law-abiding law enforcement is something that is, you know, critical. And I've never had a problem in all of my life with any. I've never had any association. You know, a couple of times, you know, 10, 20, 30 years ago, I, you know, had a DUI, but I've never had any interaction with the authorities other than traffic-related until the last 2 years, and I talk a little bit more about that in those other videos. I've gone on too long. I'm sorry. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate your time. Have a great Sunday.